to talk to the camera as though like there's a person there.
Yeah, and make pretend the person's not there.
Right.
And someone's asking you questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was hard to do, but I did it.
Well, good. Then you're like.
But I haven't seen the footage. I keep saying, can you send me the footage? I want to see how it came out.
Stand by, please.
Hi, welcome to Shrink Wrap. I'm Szifra Birke, and today I am lucky enough to have a friend and colleague, Kristine Porcaro, who is the COO and co-founder of Lexington Wealth Management in Lexington, Mass, with us today, or with me today, to talk about life after loss, some practical next steps. And the reason I really was intrigued by us getting together to talk about this, Chris, is that you wrote an article for your clients that really seemed to delineate nicely the very practical kinds of next steps people would take after losing a spouse or losing a parent. And I'm going to say something about the first one and then turn it right over to you.
Okay, great.
All right. So the first one you said, don't feel rushed or pressured, and giving people clear permission to take time to grieve and to mourn, but also realizing that there are things that really need to be done. You said there's stuff that needs to be done.
Right.
So what kinds of things or what stuff needs to be done? And
right. So just to back up a little bit,
Sure.
The first thing I realized when I met with clients was they're getting information from all different sources. You know, family members are telling them what they should be doing, colleagues, everyone, and every time they turn around, they're getting emotionally what's the word I'm thinking of?
just like,
Consoled.
okay.
Consoled. So they're being consoled and they're kind of being guided and directed, and they
Yep.
feel like they're scattered all over the place. They just don't know what to do first and where they should put their efforts and what priorities, and they're really just not thinking clearly. So a lot of times we'll just sit down and we'll talk about some of the things that should be done first and
Yeah.
some of the things that can wait, and also that this is all a process. And so it takes time to go through all the different steps. Just like going through the grieving process, you have the different phases that people will go through.
Yeah.
There are steps that, you know, need to be addressed sooner and things that can wait. So I found, even when I was kind of doing basic internet searches, that there's lots of information available, but it tends to be very technical. It tends to be in legalese. It tends to be not in a language that people understand.
Right.
So I wanted to write something that was just very simple, very real, and just very easy for them to understand. And so one of the focuses at Lexington is we talk about connecting the head and the heart of wealth management.
Right.
And so for me, this is the heart. This is the piece that people really just want to talk, they just want to be heard, and they just want to be able to get through their feelings and take their steps when they're ready. So the very first thing, don't feel rushed or pressured, is critical. I say to everyone, don't feel like you have to run out and do everything tomorrow. Don't make major life decisions in the year. Don't, just take your time and kind of walk through the steps and get some guidance and do things as they come.
Well, that really makes sense, right? Because that time is a really emotional time. And we're pretty hijacked. Our best thinking is often hijacked. And we're asked to make really, really important decisions at a time where our thinking is compromised.
Yep. And so, get some help. Ask some people. Say, call your advisors, call your accountant, talk to your financial advisor, talk to your therapist if you have one, and just take the time that you need for yourself. And then, and then there are practical things you need to do. You need to start to kind of gather mail, lots of mails coming in. And a lot of times the spouse was the person who took care of all of the financial aspects of life, and they paid all the bills, and maybe they were the only person that met with the accountant or their attorney or their financial person. So, those are decisions you'll have to make over time. You'll have to decide, is that the right person for you? Do you feel comfortable in that relationship? Or do you think, over time you might want to find someone that's more of the right fit for you and your personality and your needs at that time?
Right.
But, the whole thing about the mail, I tell everyone, take the mail, put it in a pile. You don't have to open every single piece at that point. But if you start a pile of the current things that are coming in, at that point you can see, okay, where is my bank? Maybe you don't know that, or maybe you do, but you just never really opened up the bank statement and looked at it. And so you kind of begin to get a sense of all of your stuff. Where's my, do I have a stock account? Do I have is there a retirement account? Is there a pension someplace? Should I be calling the Veterans Administration? So there's lots of that stuff where I think if you don't drive yourself crazy and try to think of it all at once, it will happen. Things happen naturally over time.
Right. And my observation based on all this that you're saying is some people are really good in their before loss life, if you will, at the kinds of things that you're talking about, because there's a kind of organizational piece here, right?
Yes.
Where you're opening up and you're putting things in piles that are the right piles where you're going to find them. And some people before loss are not good at this.
Right.
It's just not, where their core competency is. And so they may often benefit from having a friend or a relative help them with some of that, and not being afraid to ask for, like you said, not being afraid to ask for some help can really make a difference.
And look, if ideally you have this stuff, ahead of time, organized, or at least, sometimes I'll say to a client, at least just have a list, and it's, if you want to have a paper list, or if you want to have it in your computer, if you're, technically savvy and you want to have a spreadsheet, okay, but do what works for you. So if you just want a handwritten list, I remember when my father-in-law passed away, and my mother-in-law was in panic. She was really saying, what am I going to do? And he was great because he had everything written down in a notebook, just exactly, the bank account, the account number, any passwords, any online account, email passwords, things that he knew. And he just was, that type of person that wrote everything down. Some people don't. Some people keep it up here, and then that's where you're challenged, because now you need to be calling these places, supplying death certificates, show that you're authorized to be accessing accounts, and that just takes a little bit more time.
So I didn't think we were going to go here, but I want to put a plug in for people to, before loss, to have these conversations. So the best thing that may happen for somebody watching this show, if they haven't yet experienced this kind of loss, is to sit down and do even a little bit of that, what your father-in-law did.
Absolutely.
Right? Let's look at where things are. Let's have one notebook somewhere or someplace on the computer where we have all the information.
And even as, a lot of people do great estate planning work, and they prepare their wills and their power of attorneys and all of the documents that you really do need, but a simple one-page, these are my accounts, these are my passwords, this is how you access them. I mean, something as simple as that can really take months of stress off a person when you're unfortunately in that loss situation.
Right, and make sure to not leave that somewhere really obvious, right? When it's the accounts and the passwords. I mean, I'm saying the obvious, but so you'll have a special hiding place that only the two of you, or you and your children, or whomever
know about. Or maybe it's in with your will, or it's tucked away in a safe place. And certainly, you want to keep that confidential, absolutely, especially in today's world of hacking and everything else.
So what else besides opening the mail and having the conversations about passwords and so on?
I mean, basically, gather your documents, keep those kind of organized. Death certificates. You really need to make sure you have many copies of the death certificate. Because everyone's going to ask for one. The
Right,
bank.
and these need to be certified copies or whatever they're called. I forget the name.
I think
some of them do.
Right, and so I think it's important to get a good amount of those up front.
And then
you
make
can
some
certainly get
copies.
more, but it takes time.
Right.
And then a lot of places will take a copy, but I think as long as you have enough of the original or certified copies on hand, then if one particular place asks for that, you have it. You don't need to go to town hall or back to the funeral home and try to get additional copies.
Right.
And really important to contact Social Security. And people have this fear of Social Security takes forever and you have to wait in line forever. And I've heard both stories. I've heard some people have great success. They've just made an appointment, they've walked in, they've gotten everything taken care of very simply. And then I've heard the stories where people are on the phone for a long time and they get some misinformation. They also have a website, so if you are that person who likes being on the computer, you can go right to their website.
Right.
So you certainly can do that, and that's the ssa.gov website.
Right.
So you can go there.
Yes, and there's a relatively new book that's out that is called Get What's Yours. And it is really profoundly interesting about being able to delineate all the different ways Social Security can work for you. And if you just bounced through that book and looked at just survivor benefits, it would also underscore what you may be learning or prepare you for having the conversation with Social Security.
Yep, absolutely. Another place I think people should think about is maybe Veterans Administration. Some people have served at some point or another in the military, so if you call the Veterans Administration, there may be benefits that you can access. A lot of times it's very important for people to contact the person's employer or former employer even, because there may be some type of benefit, pension benefit. Sometimes there's life insurance policies that people aren't even aware of.
Right.
So,
and funny life insurance policies from banks.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes there's, $1,000 that's just given because you have an account at that bank.
Right. Yeah, so I would making those phone calls, and that's something where you can certainly do it on your own when you have some time, or many of your advisors will actually sit with our clients and make some of those calls with them. So they feel, I think, a little bit more comfortable because we're asking the right questions.
Right.
And we're unfortunately we've done it so many times with clients that we're knowing exactly what to ask, who to ask to speak to, what routes to go, and even just to navigate press this number for that department and this number for that department, that can be frustrating in its own sense. So,
and again, there may be a friend or a relative who tends to be good at that kind of navigation.
Right.
And if you're not, then again, this is the time to ask, to get gutsy and ask, even when asking for help isn't your, greatest gift.
Right. One of the things that I think people forget about is health club memberships or golf club memberships or, any type of membership. And, it's automatically coming out of someone's bank account every month.
Right.
And then, 6 months or a year pass and you've spent, it could be a
substantial
lot of
amount
money.
of money. Yeah.
And I think if you call, a lot of those places need at least a 30-day notice or may require even a copy of a death certificate.
Exactly.
So thinking about calling those places, I think that's really important. Online accounts. People have Facebook accounts and they have Twitter accounts and they have accounts where they upload photos. And so, shutting down those accounts and those sites are important, I think.
Right, although some people keep them going for a while for a way to still connect with other people. When you were talking about the gym membership, that made me think of credit cards.
Yes.
Being really important because once a person has died, you do not have to keep paying all the credit card interest and all that stuff. Is that right?
Right, I believe so. I mean, I certainly think it's wise to double check and make sure because, different companies have certain rules within their print. So I certainly wouldn't want to see a person do something that they shouldn't be doing, but I would absolutely recommend make the call, close the account. If you're not on that account, shut it down. And also, while you're doing that, notify a credit agency because, unfortunately, a lot of people are taking advantage that way. And people are going, taking information, getting access to Social Security, opening up credit cards in a deceased person's name.
So you're saying for identity theft or identity fraud,
right?
You're saying make sure to close everything down.
Yeah, and if you notify a credit agency that someone has passed, they'll flag their social. So anytime, if someone does try to open up an account with a Social Security number, they can flag the account and protect it. So
you would contact one of the three,
yeah,
or all three, or
yeah, I would at least call one and then kind of see where they're directing you, and they may even suggest purchasing some kind of credit checking service, and there are many available. So you may consider that for a short period of time as well.
Let's just take one more sentence about that because some people may not know that there are credit agencies.
Yeah.
So we should at least say there are the people who keep your credit scores
Yes.
are the people we're talking about.
Yes, and so anytime you apply for any type of mortgage or a loan or car loan of some sort, there are these agencies where they'll keep track of all of your credit.
Right.
And
I don't remember the names of them. But
I think there's Experian, Trans
something. I know.
Union, and there's several.
You're right.
So.
You could Google the three main credit agencies or whatever. Right.
Right.
Okay.
I would call the IRS. I would make sure you just let them know. And I've seen this year, really strange. I've never seen this before, but this year I've seen folks actually file a fraudulent tax return with a new address, so a refund comes to somebody else.
Right. Right. It was the argument this year for doing your taxes early.
Yeah.
Right. Because these fraudulent returns were being, millions of dollars paid out.
It's happened.
That was terrifying.
It's pretty scary. I've had a few clients where actually it's happened to. I've actually had the IRS reach out to a couple clients and say, "Have you already filed your return? Because we're seeing, a refund going to this address. Is it correct?" So, I think the IRS has been great about really staying ahead of this and trying to catch it before it happens. So, that's a good thing. But I would certainly notify them, just to kind of cover your basis.
Yeah.
You'll have a lot of stuff to go through, clothing, maybe furniture. Local charities are really looking to help people in the community, and so there's lots of different organizations that will actually come and pick that stuff up for you, so you don't have to go load up your car or find a truck and bring it. They'll actually come and pick it up.
Right.
And that's great because you just feel a little sense of I helped somebody else. So that's a great way to kind of help to get through some of that stuff.
And sometimes, like if we think about that practical, sometimes things like clothing or precious things of the person that you loved is hard to go through. And sometimes having someone else, again, I'm on that same, if there is someone else who might be able to do it, if you feel ready for those things to go, but you can't get yourself to do it,
right? Then
there may be someone else who would be able to do that and then donate.
Certainly. Yeah, certainly. And again, it's going to take time. You don't obviously do this, but it's a process. I've seen it take, a year. I've seen it take longer. And even after a year, something comes in the mail and they say, "Gee, I didn't know we had this." And so, it's a constant, I think, process. And and so you have to be patient. And you have to expect things to take a little bit of time.
Right.
And kind of get through that. The other thing I think is, along with going through some personal belongings, is you may have to sell an asset. You may have to sell a car. There may be a vacation property or a home that you are thinking about selling. So getting copies of deeds and information like that, and again, putting that in that document pile so you have access to it. I think that's important. And thinking about your cash flow.
Right.
Really planning for, your expenses and what, and what's happening, and cash flow, and just kind of getting a hold of that and understanding that. And again, that's something that a financial advisor can help to go through, or an accountant can kind of help to go through some of that information. But that's really important, because I think people want that peace of mind. They want to know that they're gonna be okay.
They're gonna be okay,
right?
And then along with that, if the person who died is the person who wrote the checks, whether online or hand wrote the checks, and you've not been part of that process, that can be really intimidating, because there may even be enough cash, but you may get behind because you're not used, it's not in your routine to write the checks. And do you write them when they first come in? Do you put them in a pile and write them once a month? What are, finding some systems for that. And there are people who specialize in that, who are much less expensive than accountants or
bill paying services.
It could be a bill paying service, and it could be a person who even comes to your home, and I can't think of their actual name. There's someone in Lexington named Moshe Rodidi. I don't know if you know him. He is part of the financial something, anyway.
And so almost like a bookkeeper, they'll come in and they'll just kind of...
and they'll help you set, but a little bit more in that they can help you set up your system and teach you and coach you if that's what you want.
Great. And we, and you actually mentioned him, but we also do something very similar. We'll sit with a client and walk them through their bill pay, or we'll, recommend if they want someone else to take care of it, we can recommend services. But just as basic as balancing your checkbook can be really stressful for some people. They don't want to do it, and I don't blame them. I hate to balance my checkbook. I really, really do, and it's my business. But I just don't like to do it, and it's painful for me every month to sit there and do it. So, get help with the things you hate.
Offload them,
Get them off.
Your hand motion says, offload those if you can.
This is about, taking the stress off.
And especially at the beginning. At the beginning, it's really hard. You're going through so many transitions, and, it just... it's challenging, it's exhausting, your brain gets drained, there isn't as much fuel in the tank.
And and people feel, I've seen people feel uncomfortable or ashamed or, embarrassed that they don't know, but don't feel that way, because it's so common that one person typically bears the brunt of all of that. One person in the household, or if you're caring for, your parent or your parent, one person takes care of that stuff. So people should not feel that way. It's and they're not alone, because so many people go through that exact same feeling.
And I would say, given my background, all the decades as a psychotherapist and now coaching people, I would say it's okay to feel that way, and juxtaposed next to that is how we going to help you carry that that discomfort and still do something rather than have it immobilize you. So
that's huge. And then there's the flip side to that person, the person who knows where everything is and knows, exactly what has to be done, and they just feel like they have to get it all done. And then they don't take time for themselves, they don't heal, they don't mourn, and that's a time where you should be spending time really going through the grieving process, spending time with your family, spending time with friends, taking time out for you just to kind of reflect, right? I mean,
Chris, honestly, I would say that there is no right way. That it will come. If that person charges ahead and that's what's going to help them, that may be the way they're grieving. Using sort of them, I don't know, their, if you will, their template for life. And then what I hope they know is that there will be a time they probably will need to feel the feelings. And it may come later, and it may not make sense to them because it's not in real time. It may be a year later that, like, why am I so upset?
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because I'm that kind of person. Like, I need to get it done. I need to just get it done, and emotion stop, kick in the drive, get it done. And I lost my mom in 2008, and I remember the market was crashing and people were panicking, and I was getting it done for my mother and settling everything in her estate and her bank accounts and all of it. And all of a sudden, a year or more passed, and I said to myself, I lost my mom. And then I grieved. And that was you know, it took that time. It took me to get it all done, and then I sat there and said, now I cry. You know, that was the...
Right, right. And
it.
that was maybe the right order for you.
Right.
Yeah, and so that's why I think we each just have our own way of doing this, and we tend to be a little judgmental about other people who are doing it differently, and that
Right.
we're literally at the last 2 minutes or so of our show, and so maybe this is a nice way for us to wrap up.
Right.
I mean, unless there's another pointer, but
yeah, I mean, I would just say, you know, do what you need to do to get through. Get some help. Ask for help. Look around you. There's tons of resources. I'm happy to share my, you know, my email address is Kristine with a K .Porcaro at lexingtonwealth.com. I'm happy to answer some questions. But, you know, this is life after loss, right? So
right.
Join a book club, join a group, have some fun, try to enjoy life, right?
Yeah, and I would say just to add to the practical piece where you generously offered your email address, that would it be possible for people to get a copy of the article with all the bullet points if they email
Absolutely.
you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so again, Kristine, Kristine .Porcaro, Porcaro at lexingtonwealth.com.
Yes.
Right.
And it also will be available on our website this month. We'll be putting it up, so you can access it 2 ways.
Okay, so people, and the website, I believe, is listed under your name all through the show.
Yes.
So people can, if they haven't written your email address down,
or
they
Google
can get
us,
you that
or
way. Right, right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Great.
Okay, so we have literally now approximately a minute left, and I'm wanting to say that first, it's been really a pleasure to be able to have you here, and the audience may know or may not know that I have done work both as a client and as a consultant for Lexington Wealth for a lot of years. We've known each other a long time.
Yes.
And you were on the show when, as you said, it was pre-DVD.
Yes.
It was a VHS tape that you got, right?
Much younger.
Much younger, yeah. I probably still had long dark hair. So, yeah, that's right. Much younger.
And thank you for having me. It's been great.
Yeah, well, this is good. I really hope that our viewers were able to take any piece of this, because any piece that they can do or share with someone else. We're on a very regular basis, the way, of course, life goes is that we're losing someone. Mm-hmm. We're losing a spouse, we're losing a friend, we're losing a parent, a grandparent, and somebody is in the throes of this confusion, right, about what do I do now, what are the next steps, and being able to have some very